Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of our expansion Buffalo Wings. And we are finally getting down to business with the Wings as far as the Major League team. Just completed the expansion draft, and we are in our first free agency period ahead of a 2026 season when Buffalo will actually begin competing in Major League Baseball. We've built up a decent farm system over the past 3 years, ranked 12th overall right now, led by the fifth ranked prospect in baseball, catcher Andres Medina, who was an international free agent signing of ours just less than 2 years ago. So, right now, just want to start off with one housekeeping item. I did like an idea that Three Quarters Badger had suggested, and I, based on our game settings episode in our last episode where we went through all of that stuff, and I did rename our reliever award to the Mariano Rivera Award. As a Yankees fan, Three Quarters Badger just had to plant that seed in my mind, and I thought it was a great idea. So we did go ahead and do that. And we've also made a couple of offers. The first for free agents. You can see that, Vlad Guerrero Jr., JT Realmuto, Kyle Tucker, among the top prospects that are out there, not prospects, among the top free agents that are out there, but are all players looking for 35, 40, 45 million dollars a year. We honestly could go after one of those kind of players, but I don't think it makes a ton of sense for us right now. Want to kind of see what some of our young players can do. We're not expecting to be a true contender next year, so we don't want to make any unnecessary long-term commitments. That being said, we have made an offer, as you can see here, to the starting pitcher, Tylor Megill. My friends who are Mets fans will find this one a bit funny because last year when they had a rotation with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom and Carlos Carrasco, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker, and a huge payroll, Tylor Megill somehow ended up being their opening day starter, which I mocked my Mets fans, friends for relentlessly. And now here I am going after him just a few seasons later in the mythical universe here. But my thought is Megill was looking for 1.7 million a year for 1 year. We actually have him thinking about a 6.8 million offer over 4 years with a team option in that final season. My thought is he could conceivably be a top of the rotation starter for us, which says a lot about our team, in contrast to the 2022 Mets. The 2026 Buffalo Wings don't have any particular aspirations. But my thought is he's probably going to be one of our top pitchers this coming year if we sign him. But with his profile and his experience, and if we're able to get him for about 1.7 million a year over 4 years, hopefully he kind of over the course of time goes from being a second starter to maybe the 3 starter to a 4 starter to maybe our number 5 starter at the end of the contract. And if we're in a situation where he's our number 5 starter 3 or 4 years from now, probably means that we've done a pretty good job in building the team. So we brought him on board, or we're trying to bring him on board. We'll see what happens. We just made the offer today. And then we've also made an offer to Jose Abreu. Viewer fake name noted that right now our starting first baseman is Colton Wong. And as a Seattle fan, he was not impressed with that. And quite honestly, looking at his ratings, Wong is someone who we had in Double-A in Utica a couple years ago when he was a free agent, was in Triple-A Albany in our organization this past year. If he ends up being a utility guy for us, probably not the worst thing in the world. But we have made a 1 year, $6 million offer to Jose Abreu to hopefully be our full-time first baseman. Also gives us a captain personality at the major league level. You can see he was looking for $7.5 million. He was willing to listen to us for $6. Not a long-term commitment, and gives us a captain on our 26-man roster at the major league level, which we could certainly use. Gives us a accomplished bat for the middle of our lineup, and also is not a long-term commitment. So I think that makes some sense as well. And last but not least, we have made a trade offer, and this one may be a little controversial to some people, but if I can get to the right screen here, I'll show you what I wanted to show you. Still kind of adjusting my screens here in OOTP 24, particularly with the fact that I no longer have owner goals that I care about, which used to be in this screen down here. But popular players, Andres Munoz, who is popular nationally, very popular locally, a guy who we would take a bit of a hit to our great fan interest if we got rid of. You may remember we picked him up in the expansion draft, the most expensive guy we picked. He's a great closer. I just don't know that we really need a great closer right now. And one of the guys that we may be able to pick up for him is pretty interesting to me. So I'm going to let you know the trade offer that I've made. And it's an offer to Detroit for Jensen and Made. And I am most interested in, and unfortunately I can't, I guess I can pull it up here if I go to discuss. Carter Jensen is just a potential organizational depth as a catcher, a guy who we could play as a backup at the major league level if we needed to. I threw him in, but when I did the search for opportunities to trade Munoz, Kevin Made, and it may be Made, if anybody knows, let me know, came up. And he's a 23-year-old prospect in the Detroit system. And right now we don't have a shortstop. He's listed as a third baseman, but with that 65 range and error rating, 70 arm, 65 turning double play, he is at least a respectable defensive major league shortstop. And my thought is that this bat potentially is a respectable major league bat for a shortstop. He's had a brief stint in the majors at this point over a couple of seasons, first with the Cubs and then with Detroit. 88 OPS plus and 86 WRC plus and 207 at-bats at the major league level. So my thought is, and he's still got some development that our scout thinks can happen. I don't love the low leadership, but we should have enough leaders on the team to offset that. But my thought with him is he's probably in the top half of the league in terms of defensive shortstops. And he's potentially in the top half of the league in terms of the type of offense that you might get out of a shortstop. To me, he's not a bad player for us to think about bringing on board. He just turned 23, as I said, so he's over 3 years younger than Munoz is. And right now, when I look at our lineups, our shortstop is Dalton Guthrie, who is brutal in terms of his range for a shortstop. He does have a very good error rating, but just not a guy that I would like to be playing every day. We've also got Kike Hernandez, who's been in our minor league system in AAA this past year. I think Kike is probably going to make the team, but more as a utility guy most likely. Certainly don't see him being a starting shortstop for us. And then even Jacob Amaya and Nick York, who are kind of pushed into a platoon at second right now, but could end up playing short if we needed. Amaya, not as good defensively. Nick York, clearly not as good defensively. So my thought was we basically, I don't want to say that we got Munoz for nothing because we used, I think, our 4th or 5th pick in the expansion draft on him. But we don't really need a closer. And potentially bringing on Made gives us a guy who should be our shortstop for the next few years. And he's a guy who, as I mentioned, has only been in the majors for parts of the last 2 seasons. His service time is just under a year at this point. So we've got him for 2 more years at the major league minimum, followed by those arbitration years. So I want to see what Detroit has to say about this offer. Again, when I shot Munoz, it was just Made who showed up, and we do know that with the new trading AI and OOTP 24, and the fact that I have trade hard mode checked on, just because somebody shows up in an offer when you shop somebody doesn't mean that you can get them straight up. So the fact that I added in Jensen also may make it a trade that doesn't happen, but we'll at least see what they have to say, and maybe get our shortstop for the next couple of seasons settled in. And certainly if we ended up coming up with someone who was a better defensive shortstop, Made seems like a guy who could be a pretty good third baseman or second baseman or utility infielder with his glove as well. And we've been going back and forth with the Tigers for the last couple of days. We couldn't get the catcher, but we do have a deal, and I have in the interim looked up, and not surprisingly his name is pronounced Kevin Made, so that's what we will be calling him. And I think he's going to become our new shortstop. We have to throw in one other player, but it can be a nothing burger like 30-year-old Chris Campbell, who played in high A ball for us this year. So certainly don't mind throwing him in. It'll hurt to lose Andres Munoz. He's definitely a great closer, but we don't really need a great closer as a team that's only hoping to avoid 100 losses in the upcoming season. And I think that the 23-year-old Kevin Made, with that glove and a bat that looks like it could be potentially decent, to me is a guy that I love to bring into our organization. So we are going to go ahead and add Chris Campbell into this deal. And we're going to go ahead and complete the trade. Bring Kevin Made on board. Doesn't seem like we even took a hit to fan interest moving on from Munoz, with just the fact that he was very popular. So that's positive, and we may have our shortstop of the present and possibly our shortstop of the future in Made. And we did hear back from Tyler McGill. Apparently he likes our offer, but the Red Sox are also interested in him. We also made an offer to Lucius Fox for a minor league deal just to rejoin our system, more as organizational depth than anything else. So feel like we've already gotten a shortstop. We may have a starting pitcher coming our way. We'll wait to hear from Abreu. And then there are also a few international amateur free agents, or not international free agents, not amateur free agents. These guys are generally somewhat established professionals at this point. Made some offers there episode back to see if maybe we can bolster our minor league system with these guys. Made minor league offers to them. Some of them may be major league contracts when all is said and done, but we were basically just trying to buy some time while we're getting those scouted. You can see we also made a minor league offer to Kevin Biggio as similar to Fox, potential organizational depth. And with Biggio, he's also got the captain personality, so between either him and or Abreu, we should have a captain at the major league level next year. And we've gotten the scouting reports back on those international free agents. Hiroki Kachuni looks like a decent defensive catcher. He's not going to really ever hit enough to be a good productive major leaguer. He does potentially have a little pop in his bat, but with that defensive prowess. Not the worst guy to have as a 4A guy, maybe the backup to our backup. The issue is that he just told us he has an offer from the Angels and he's likely going to sign with them. So he didn't accept our minor league offer. We just made him a minor league offer, but I screwed up. I meant to make him actually a really low major league offer, so he's probably not going to go for that. But Andres Salgado is a 22-year-old pitcher. Not a brilliant prospect, but certainly not a horrible prospect either. I think we still have an offer for a minor league contract outstanding to him. Just want to check in on that. Yeah, we haven't heard back from Salgado yet, so we'll see what we end up hearing from him, but at least we know a little more about him. Hideyasu Oki, 25-year-old starting pitcher. Looks like he could be a back end of the rotation type of guy for us. Certainly wouldn't mind bringing him on board. We've got a minor league contract offer to him outstanding. And then Kichihiro Takeuchi, another pitching prospect. Not the greatest personality in the world, a little bit older, but again, beggars can't be choosers as far as our pitching rotation. So if we can bring any of these guys on a minor league contract particularly, I think we'd be happy to do so. So the winter meetings are going to be starting in just a couple days, and then we're a little over a week away from the Rule 5 draft, which is going to be critically important for us because we've got a lot of holes on our team, and the Rule 5 draft may be a pretty cost-effective way to fill some of those holes. We have at this point only 25 players on our 40-man roster, so we have plenty of opportunity to add as many players as we want in the Rule 5 draft. We do actually have a couple of guys that we may want to save. Jose Ailman has only been in A-ball for us this past year, split it between rookie ball and A-ball, but our scout still sees him as a 3-star potential player. Juan Brito is another guy who could conceivably have a role on our major league team. Picked him up in the expansion draft. You see the trade with Jacksonville. That's just because Jacksonville was the dummy team that we used to do our expansion draft. I don't know whether we want to protect him or not. Would like to kind of keep him in the system, but a lot of these younger guys that we picked up in the expansion draft, we may need to protect. So as we get closer to the Rule 5 draft, we'll figure if we're going to add maybe a few more players onto our 40-man, just so we don't risk losing them. And then we'll see what we can come up with as far as some additional talent when we get involved in the Rule 5 draft. And I have to think we'll be picking several players. And we did get Tyler McGill signed. So I think that's a good move for us. Again, on a good team, he's a 4th or 5th starter. We are not a good team, so he could conceivably be our 1st or 2nd starter this coming season. But it's not a ton of money, $1.5 million, $1.6 million, and $1.7 million the next 3 years, and then a team option for $2 million at the end of the contract. So I think that it's hard to see a way where that contract really goes bad for us. Jose Abreu leaning towards our offer. And looks like with some of the international free agents that they're looking for more than just minor league offers. We've seen the draft lottery results, but I am going to change those and have ourselves and the Stars picking 1st and 2nd in the upcoming draft. But don't really need to worry about changing that now because we've got until next July before that becomes an issue. And you can see that our bench coach, since I am playing as both GM and manager, has penciled in Tyler McGill as our number one starter. He's also the only potential starter on our team right now who actually started a game in the major leagues last year. So that says a lot about our staff. Still have a lot of work to do. Hopefully the Rule 5 can help us. And then when we get to January, if there's any players kind of still lingering on the free agent market whose prices get more reasonable, certainly may dip our toes into free agency with a Dylan Cease or a Walker Buehler, a Tyler Glasnow type, Chris Paddock. There's guys out there, but they're all looking for pretty big money. And then there's obviously Salgado in terms of potential. We've already talked about him, though. And he is now at a point where he's got an offer from the Cougars. Oh, so that must be an independent league team. Let's see if we offer... Yeah, minor league contract with a signing bonus. I'm happy to do that to bring him into our organization. We've got plenty of money, so let's see. I can't imagine that the Cougars are going to be able to compete with a $100,000 signing bonus. So we'll see if we can get Salgado into our system for $100,000 on a minor league contract. I think that would be a pretty good acquisition for us. And we haven't done much over the past few days through the winter meetings and on to the Rule 5 draft today. We have made minor league offers with signing bonuses to a couple of those international free agents that I had talked about earlier. Still haven't heard back definitively from anybody. So time for the Rule 5 draft to get underway. Looks like the Stars will be picking right ahead of us. Oh, this is kind of interesting. It looks like the Rule 5 draft is now limited to 3 rounds. Don't think I made that change, but it definitely makes it a little different than it used to be when you could load up on tons of players, but probably somewhat more realistic. So we'll go ahead and get the draft started. See if Nashville picked anybody. Nashville didn't pick anybody. That is a little bit surprising. I would think there's got to be somebody who can help out there. Let's take a look at all the pitchers in general. Raylene Perez looks like a pretty decent relief pitcher. 24-year-old, only been up for 11 days with the Royals at the end of this past year. Extremely small sample size, but stuff and his movement are both above average. Great slider, pretty good sinker, and a very mediocre changeup. Doesn't look like a horrible relief pitcher, though. Jose Ailman in our organization, as you can see, we did not bother saving if somebody wants to, or protecting. If somebody wants to go after him, they can. Although, honestly, if I had known that the Rule 5 draft was changed to just 3 rounds, it's possible that I would have, it's not possible, I certainly would have protected more players, but it is what it is at this point. Taking a look at some of the batters in terms of potential, not a ton. Yerlin Confidant could certainly be in the mix for a spot in our outfield, like the home run power. Think he could, as I said, definitely be in the mix for a spot on our team. Scouting director recommends we go with Jose Siri, a center fielder. Do like the glove. The bat is not incredible. He's from the Stars. How did they acquire him? They picked him in the, once again, a trade with Tucson or a trade with Jacksonville means that the player was actually picked in the expansion draft. So they picked him up in the expansion draft. We are short a center fielder, and Jose Siri at least would give us an excellent defensive center fielder for this upcoming season. I don't think that's a horrible thing for us to bring on board. Like I said, I don't love the bat. Let's take a look at what he's done at the major league level over the course of his career. 244 hitter, 34 homers, and over 1,200 at bats, but a 88 OPS plus, 87 WRC plus, and a 4.9 WAR for his career, an average of a 2 WAR over 162 games for him, thanks largely to that glove. Center field is a position that we need some help, and worst case scenario is we just send him back. So we're going to go ahead and draft Jose Siri. Almeida Diaz was picked away from us. That's fine. He's a guy that we picked up in the expansion draft. 35-year-old. Okay bat, okay glove, but not a big part of our future, so that's fine. Continuing on, and we're back to our pick. Let's just see what's happened. Yeah, there are teams that have picked players. So we're going to go ahead here in the second round, and scouting director recommends we go with Israel Pineda, catcher out of Venezuela. And we do need a backup catcher. Actually, we kind of need a starting catcher too. Good personality, only average-ish defensively, not a horrible bat. I don't know that we want to keep him on the major league roster all year, but I would certainly consider bringing him into camp. That's for sure. And I think, just in case I read that right, and the Rule 5 is only 3 rounds, I'm going to take... I would be interested in Pineda if he's still around next round, but I want to make sure we get Raylan Perez, especially with the trade of Munoz. Another pretty good arm for our bullpen. A couple years younger than Munoz at the age of just 24. I think he could be a interesting player for us going forward, so we're going to go ahead and draft him. Move on, see what's happened as we get to the third round here. Only Texas and St. Louis also picked in the second round. They're still recommending Pineda, and as I said, we do need a catcher. In a perfect world, I'd love my backup catcher to be better defensively, but it's not inconceivable that Israel Pineda could be our starting catcher right now, which says a lot about our roster, but definitely think he's somebody that I would like to bring into camp. So we're going to go ahead and draft him. And okay, yeah, it does go more than 3 rounds. Maybe I misread something there. It was a weird screen. I didn't feel like I had ever... I guess it just keeps going to whatever round. Okay. So we'll continue the draft here. Scout recommends we go with Nolan Jones, first baseman. That is a position where we could use some help. And he is a captain personality, making the major league minimum. Hopefully we get Abreu signed. But if we don't, this guy's a first baseman. This guy's a captain personality. Don't mind bringing him into the organization. And the players are excited by a good captain coming on board, which they will probably feel similarly if we decide to, or if not if we decide, if Abreu decides to sign with us. Moving on here to the 5th round. Scouting director continues to recommend players. Richie Palacios, like the leadership and work ethic, but I think that Nolan Jones would win the first base spot over him. But I'm going to spend a little time looking through all of the guys who are available, because if there's anyone who can help our team, we certainly should take a flyer on them. And we're going to go in a different direction here in the 5th round. We're going to pick up Max Meyer, a guy that we had at the end of our Cincinnati playthrough. Could be a reliever for us, could be a starter for us. May not make the team at all, but we're looking to create as much competition as possible, and bringing Max Meyer in to compete for a bullpen spot or a back of the rotation spot can't hurt us. Similarly, on here into the 6th round, we're going to do the same thing with Tanner Houck. Another guy, could be a back end of the rotation starter, could certainly be a reliever. He's kind of a 5-inning guy with that type of stamina, but beggars cannot be choosers, and we just want to have as many options as possible at this point on our team. Taking a look at the organization at this point, still only up to 33 players on our 40-man roster, so there's certainly an opportunity to bring in a few more Rule 5 guys to potentially compete for a spot on our team. Scouting director recommends we keep going. Adrian Pinto, shortstop, only 23 years old. That's honestly the most intriguing thing about him. And did hit 309 and 330 last year between Double A and Triple A in the Tigers organization. Just not incredibly impressed with his glove. Don't think that's the direction we're going to go this round. Looks like at this point we are the only team picking, and a little bit surprising that Nashville did not pick anyone in the Rule 5 draft, and you can see they've actually lost several players. And I think we're going to call it a draft. Ended up getting 3 pitchers, Houck, Meyer, and Perez. Got an outfielder in Siri. We got a catcher in Pineda, third baseman in Nolan Jones. So we kind of covered all our bases with 3 pitchers, an infielder, an outfielder, and a catcher. Certainly don't expect that we're going to keep all 6 of those players, but would certainly expect that a couple of them are going to end up making our 26-man roster. So added a decent amount of talent in the Rule 5 draft. We've still got a ton of money to potentially spend this off season, most notably waiting to hear on our offer to Abreu. And you can see those minor league contracts with bonuses that we've offered to few people at this point. We'll wait and see what we hear from them as well. And as I talked about, there certainly is potential for us to get involved in some of these free agents as the calendar turns to 2026 and we try to figure out what the rest of our roster should look like. We've got plenty of money to bring guys on for a 1-year contract if we need. I just don't think there's a lot of guys out here right now that we'd like to make real long-term commitments to. And things are going well here in the beginning of 2026. We signed Oki, starting pitcher who was a international free agent. Kevin Biggio joined our minor league system. And most importantly, we brought Jose Abreu on for that 1-year, $6 million deal. I think that captain personality will help. I think he'll definitely take over as a bat in the middle of our lineup. Whether he ends up being a first baseman or a designated hitter is TBD, but certainly gives us a proven power hitter for the middle of our batting order. And importantly, that should likely assure us that Colton Wong will not end up as our starting first baseman. Let's see what Martinez recommends. Yeah, and he would put Abreu in as our first baseman and our number 3 hitter right now. You can see Jay Sparofin, who was our first round draft pick back in 2023, is penciled in as our cleanup hitter and starting right fielder. Would think that this roster is going to look very different. Israel Pineda, who we just picked up in the Rule 5 draft, penciled in as our starting catcher. Kevin Made, who we made the trade for, penciled in as our starting shortstop. So Jose Siri, who we just picked up in the Rule 5, penciled in as our starting center fielder. So we've brought on a lot of guys who are certainly going to be competing for playing time and spots, taking a look at the pitching staff now with the addition of these players. And Tyler McGill, still our number one guy. We've got a lot of depth in the bullpen at this point. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if we're able to bring on another established major league starting pitcher to join Tyler at the top of the rotation. Taking a look at the starters who are available, Paddock and Salgado are the highest potential players. Clearly, Paddock is the most established. We've got money to spend. He's not a $16.7 million pitcher at this point in his career, and he's also looking for 3 years with that kind of money. That's just not a prudent long-term move. If it gets to the point where he's only looking for a 1-year contract, maybe we bring him on board. You know, there's also guys like Chris Bassett, Shane Bieber, Carlos Carrasco, Glasnow, who we talked about earlier, even Steven Matz if we want someone who's pretty injury prone. So there certainly are plenty of guys available who could be back of the rotation starters on a good team. They'd likely be number 2 or number 3 starters for our team next year, but I'm not going to chase after these guys with big money and long-term contracts if we can eventually, over the coming weeks, bring on somebody for a season or 2 or 3, particularly if there's a reasonable dollar amount and there's some team options at the back end of the deal. Certainly wouldn't mind having a few more proven, decent professional starters on our 26-man roster when all is said and done. And I think with the fact that we do have plenty of money to potentially spend, we're going to make an offer to Shane Bieber, who would certainly be one of the better pitchers on our team. Looking for about $12 million, and he's also only looking for a 1-year deal. The stamina is the issue with him at this point. But even if he's a 4 to 5 inning starter for us, you look at what he's done over the course of his career with a 136 ERA plus and a 74 FIP minus. And he certainly has a profile where he could be a useful 4 or 5 inning starter for us. It's not an ideal situation. And I don't know that we're going to give him a no trade clause. I don't know that we're going to give him any bonus as far as innings pitched. Although he would have a tough time. Yeah, if he pitches 200 innings for us, yeah. Give you a $250,000 bonus if you get to 200 innings, but there's no way that's going to happen. And we'll give you bonuses for a Cy Young Award and for an All-Star selection, but we're not going to give you the kind of money that you're looking for. I don't know whether he'd go for $7.5 million for 1 year with a team option for that second season if we're able to turn him into a useful 5-inning starter. I can't imagine he's going to go for this deal at this point. Yeah, he wants more money and he doesn't want the 2-year commitment, so we'll let him sit out there a little while longer. I don't think we need to chase on any of these pitchers. Well, maybe we should have chased on Shane Bieber because he just signed with Cincinnati right after we were talking to him for $10.5 million. Obviously, with what he has, he would have been a good addition to our team for a year, but with that low stamina, I just don't know how many innings we were going to get out of him. With the money we've got to spend, should I have brought him on board? Certainly could argue, yes. but there's still plenty of other guys for us to look at as far as a above replacement level type starting pitcher. But and for our team, above replacement level could be a number 2 or a number 3 starter. So there are guys out there. I also think I'm going to spend a little more time perusing the trade market. I don't think there's anything particularly interesting on the trading block right now, as you can see. Nobody exceptional there as far as starting pitchers or even players in general. I guess George Springer. He's just making a lot of money. And it says he's not willing to waive his no trade clause, but he would clearly be an important bat in the middle of our lineup if we brought him on board. So we've still got a lot to think about, but I think between the 6 guys we picked up in the Rule 5 draft, the acquisition of Tyler McGill to be our number 1 starter, the acquisition of Jose Abreu to be our first baseman and hit in the middle of our lineup, and then I am really excited about Kevin Made as someone who could be a important infielder for us, I think, for several years to come. So I think we've made a little bit of progress with this Wings team on the margin. We'll be back in our next episode to kind of finish up free agency, finish up preparation for the upcoming season, and see what this Buffalo roster is potentially looking like as we get closer to spring training. If you've got thoughts on what we've been doing, would love to hear them in the comments. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.